Hey yo, feel the change coming. Come on, I feel the change coming, feel the change. Slip into rhythm, dipped into rhythm, seeker, speaker of words, technique, observe the vision of the world. Trouble and double take, disbelief at the crumbler state. Some mumble fate, the humble wait, don't debate. Like the couple of love and hate, but stumble and strive to break new ground. We need new sounds and old souls. My flow holds my soul close to the cosmos. Now we back to earth where we get tacked and hurt and packed dirt over too many graves. Too many slaves buried under waves. Historical atrocities, like an oracle, I got to see other possibilities for our future prophecy. Honestly, it's hard to be positive, but we got to be forward motion, circular thought, and cycles were caught, limitations were taught. I can feel the change coming. 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 I can feel. Hey yo, my mind shifts through rhyme gifts. My time gets sucked by my debts. We taxpayers fund doomsayers and Armageddon brokers. These jokers control us through hocus pocus. We lose focus, trapped in bound books, drafted by kings and crown crooks who found fear creates subjects you can subjugate and use to abuse others' fate. From slave owners to CEOs, stockholders in priest robes, to cops on blocks and military patrols. And for those whose heart is pure, the system is corrupt, so it disrupts your good intentions. We become trapped, waiting for our pensions and eventual freedom. Work we needed, but if it's uninspired, it depletes us, defeats us. Let's find a path that completes us before we become complete dust. Come on, I can feel the change coming. I can feel the change.
Well, did you get that? New York City poet, MC, theater artist, and beatboxer extraordinaire Baba Israel is feeling the change. Indeed, he's toured across the world performing with artists such as Outkast, The Roots, Vernon Reid, Africa Bambaataa. Now, having headed up the Playback Theater Company in New York City, he's just been tapped to be the artistic director and CEO at Contact Theatre, a pioneering group in Manchester, England. Baba's the author of Remixing the Ritual. He's come here to talk with us before heading off to the UK. Great to see you, Baba. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first off, let's I don't even know where to begin, really, but feeling the change, are you still feeling it?
I'm still feeling it. I mean, change is a constant. And it's funny, I wrote this song before sort of the Obama campaign and before that sort of slogan was in its full glory. But, you know, I think I wrote it at a time where I was feeling a desperate need for change, you know, in the sort of the height of the Bush administration. And you know, was feeling a lot of injustice locally, nationally, internationally, and it was sort of, you know, the verses are actually a lot about a lot of the problems and a lot of the social justice issues that I think about, and the chorus was just sort of like a call out, something to keep my own self going. I wrote it on a plane, you know, on the way to California, and so yeah, it was kind of a mantra for myself. And then you know, it's funny when the Obama campaign, people said, "Oh, you should try to create some kind of connection." Oh, anyway, that didn't happen, but it's fine. But yeah, I'm still feeling the change, and we still need change.
Well, you're still going through a lot of change. First, before we get to where you're going, tell us where you came from. People who aren't in New York may not know much about you, but you come from a good lineage of progressive and radical artists.
Definitely.
Your dad, Steve Ben Israel, well known on the kind of beat scene.
Yes.
Where did you spring from?
Well, I grew up in New York City, you know, like in Brooklyn for the first couple of years, living with the Living Theater, this amazing radical collective.
So your father was a member?
He was a core member since the early 60s. So we lived in a couple of brownstones. They were working at BAM at the time, Brooklyn Academy of Music, which I ended up working at many years later. And then pretty much from then, they didn't want to raise me on the road. They didn't want to raise me in the sort of nomadic lifestyle of the touring theater company. So they decided to stay put in New York, moved to Soho in the 70s, which before it was Soho, very different. It was working class Italian and a few crazy artists, you know, sprinkling into these affordable apartments and crazy lofts. Unfortunately, my parents moved into an apartment, not a loft, so we don't have a loft. But I had a lot of friends with lofts growing up. And, you know, so I grew up in Soho, which was an amazing experience because it was, you know, a lot of art. You know, Keith Haring was down there at the time. Henry Chalfant, who was a great photographer who did a lot with graffiti and, you know, books like Subway Art. And his gallery was a block from my house. And there was a lot of people from the hip-hop sort of generation and community coming down and, you know, coming to the galleries, you know, breaking on the street.
Isn't this stuff supposed to jump generations? And you're describing your father. It doesn't sound so unlike you.
Well, I did go to the Bronx High School of Science, actually, so that was a little bit of a different turn.
True.
So a little bit of a rebellion there. You know, I did have my sort of science high school moment, which didn't really work out, and I just started writing poetry in the back of the class and, you know, came back full swing to being an artist. But I mean, you know, I was in a children's theater company, you know, when I was 10, 11 years old, which was run by a woman from the Living Theater named Gypsy, and we did sort of anti-consumerism plays, and I played Ronald Reagan with a, you know, with a yeah, you got it, there you go, with a laser gun, and we toured the parks of New York. So I was pretty indoctrinated at an early age. I mean, it wasn't forced, but it was definitely, you know, my father would talk with me about Nicaragua when I was 11 years old. And
so you are a great example of how it can work,
people.
It
can work.
Let's play a clip of Steve Ben Israel and his son, Baba Israel, who's here with us at GRITtv. Take a look.
Fantastic.
And there's all those folks. You know the folks. We're all those folks. Looking at each other, not looking at each other, still looking at each other, not looking at each other, thinking at each other, looking at all the different clothes, the people people walk, and different hats, and what they represent in the culture. And when the door opens up, they look up, and somebody comes in, somebody goes out, comes in, goes out, but they're always looking down.
That's Steve Ben Israel, the father of our guest,
yes.
Baba Israel. Let me come to your work here in the city before we talk about Manchester. For people who need the basics, what is it to be a beatboxer? What is beatbox?
Well, beatboxing is part of hip-hop culture. I mean, most people think of hip-hop, they just think of just the rap, just the rapper who's the commercial, you know, on MTV. But hip-hop's a total culture. It has many elements. It has dance, it has music. And one of the musical parts is beatboxing, which is actually the term beatboxing comes from the term for the drum machine in the 80s, which was, you know, kind of a lot of bands shifted and started using drum machines. And if those were called, the sort of slang term for that in hip hop culture was beatbox. And if you imitated those machines, you became a human beatbox. So it's one of the first moments where human beings are imitating technology instead of the other way around. And you had early beatboxers like Dougie Fresh and Buff from the Fat Boys, and like that's some of the early lineage. And it's basically the so it's, you know, imitating these drum sounds. Eventually the human dropped away, it just became known as beatboxing. Artists like Rozelle from The Roots kind of expanded it, took it to the live drums.
So
and everything.
you've got yourself to a situation where you don't need that beatbox machine, but now you've got new technology, and I read a blog post by you the other day about how you were employing your iPhone in concert. How?
Well, yes. Well, basically, I travel with Yako, who you'll meet later when I perform, and he's, you know, my DJ musical collaborator, but I was doing my one-man theater show, and I have a lot of complex music cues, and I knew there was going to be no time to teach the sound person at the venue the sound cues. It wasn't going to happen because it was a really tight sort of window. So I did some research. I found out there was a way to control my music software with my iPhone. Got the iPhone, loaded the software on, strapped it to my arm with like one of those sort of exercise bands. And then just when I would do my movement, boom, hit my cues. It was quite a breakthrough.
We should say this is not an advertisement for the iPhone.
No,
you could probably do it with another device, but that's really cool.
Yeah, but I think it speaks to hip hop's sort of subversion of technology and constantly like taking a turntable and making it an instrument. You know what I mean? There's a spirit of innovation in hip hop culture, you know, that is about flipping your resources and maximizing them and using them in new ways. And I think that's something that I really appreciate about the sort of ingenuity of the culture.